There's a kind of heaviness that doesn't come from what's happening. It just is. You wake up with it, you carry it through your day. Nothing went wrong. No tragedy occurred, and yet your chest feels dense, your energy low, your eyes tired for reasons you can't name. When people ask, "What's wrong?" you have no answer, because you don't know either. It's not sadness exactly. It's something quieter, something that sits beneath words. Psychologists call this low-grade emotional weight, a kind of invisible fatigue that doesn't come from the mind, but from the heart. It's what happens when emotions accumulate faster than they can be processed. Each unspoken worry, each small disappointment, each tiny moment of pretending you're okay. It all gathers somewhere inside. And one day, the body begins to whisper what the mind ignored. You might call it burnout, emptiness, or just being off. But the truth is, this heaviness often isn't caused by one big event. It's caused by 1,000 small ones. Moments you brushed aside because they didn't seem important enough to matter. The unreturned texts, the quiet loneliness in a crowded room, the act of holding yourself together when you should have fallen apart. For people who feel deeply, the world doesn't need to break them to make them tired. It only needs to keep asking for more patience, more care, more strength, and so they give until something inside them starts to sink. That's when the heart grows heavy, not from failure, but from carrying too much for too long. This invisible heaviness often has roots in the nervous system. When life demands constant strength, the body adapts by holding tension, by staying ready. You may not notice it, but your shoulders are tight, your jaw clenched, your breath shallow. The body keeps score of everything the mind tries to forget. When emotions go unprocessed, they don't disappear. They settle. They hide in the muscles, in the breath, in the silence between words. This is what psychologists call somatic holding. The body becomes a container for emotion that was never given space to flow, and over time, the container fills up. That's why the heart can feel heavy, even when nothing's wrong. It's not always depression or hopelessness. Sometimes it's emotional residue, the leftovers of stress and sorrow that never had room to leave. You told yourself, "I'll deal with it later," but later never came. And it's not just personal pain. The world itself adds weight. The news, the noise, the comparison, the collective ache of people pretending they're fine, it all seeps in. Sensitive people especially absorb it like sponges. They can't help it. They're wired to feel. But sensitivity without release becomes burden. So, when your heart feels heavy for no reason, maybe it's not a flaw. Maybe it's a signal, a quiet invitation to stop surviving and start feeling again. Because the heart isn't tired of life. It's tired of carrying it alone. People whose hearts often feel heavy are rarely weak. They're usually the ones who keep going. The ones who carry everyone else's chaos while hiding their own. They're the listeners, the helpers, the ones who always seem fine. But their calm exterior hides an emotional storm. These people have what psychologists call high emotional empathy. They feel other people's energy so deeply that it begins to live inside them. When someone around them is hurting, they absorb it like static electricity, invisible, but real. They don't just hear pain, they inhale it. And the problem is, they don't always know how to let it go. That's why their hearts get heavy, because they mistake other people's pain for their own. They replay conversations in their mind, trying to fix what can't be fixed. They overthink words, overanalyze silences, and take responsibility for emotions that were never theirs to carry. And yet, when you tell them they're too sensitive, they feel misunderstood, because for them, sensitivity isn't a flaw. It's awareness. They don't want to stop feeling. They just want the world to stop being so heavy. But the truth is, the world will always be heavy. The real work is learning to feel without drowning, to care without absorbing, to love without losing yourself. Healing the heavy heart isn't about becoming numb. It's about learning to release. For most people, that release doesn't happen through logic. It happens through movement, expression, and stillness. Crying, writing, walking, creating, breathing. These are the body's languages of release. Therapists call this somatic discharge, the process of helping the body let go of stored tension and emotion. It's why, after a deep cry or a long walk, you suddenly feel lighter without knowing why. The emotion didn't vanish. It moved. It transformed. But emotional healing also requires compassion, not just from others, but from yourself. The heavy-hearted often treat their feelings like inconveniences. They apologize for being too much. But healing begins when you stop apologizing and start listening. When you realize that the heaviness isn't weakness, it's proof that you've been feeling deeply in a world that forgets how. Stillness, silence, solitude. These aren't empty spaces. They're where the body finally exhales. So if your heart feels heavy, don't rush to escape it. Sit with it. Breathe through it. Let it soften. Because emotions, when acknowledged, start to move on their own. Eventually, every heavy heart learns something sacred. That lightness isn't found by avoiding pain, but by allowing it to flow. You stop asking, "Why do I feel this way?" and start whispering, "It's okay that I do." You learn that nothing inside you needs fixing, only attention. The heaviness becomes less of a burden and more of a rhythm, a reminder that you're alive, that you're capable of feeling the full spectrum of being human. You realize that peace doesn't mean the absence of weight. It means the ability to carry it gently. And one day, you'll wake up and the heaviness will still be there, but it won't scare you anymore. You'll move through it like mist, slower, softer, kinder. Because healing isn't about erasing the heart's sensitivity, it's about learning to trust it again. Some hearts feel heavy for no reason because they were built that way. To sense the unseen, to love deeply, to hold space for life in all its chaos and beauty. And maybe that's not something to fix. Maybe it's something to honor, because a heavy heart isn't a broken one, it's a full one.